And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Find them both, motleyrice.com, causes, not just cases, stokesvw.com for your next ride. If you're planning to tailgate or planning to haul somebody like the family around this holiday season, make sure they all fit in there. Don't leave Aunt Kathy at home or anything like that. Head to Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. It's free. Download it into your phone. Watch and listen to our program daily between 12 and 2 o'clock. You can always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well for much more on our program, which today is Friday. You know how that works around here in the fall. Darren and I will make plenty of picks. We do not have Rafael Esparza today. There is a lot going on in Vegas, and they need Rafael Esparza today. So he'll take the day off. We've got plenty to get to, lots of picks to make. High school football playoffs are underway and things of that nature. An interesting article out today about coaches in college football, men's basketball, women's basketball over the last 10 plus years, and the amount of money that's been thrown at them to go away, fired coaches' money, basically. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. And then, of course, in the bottom half of our show, the final hour at 1 o'clock, it's the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and served by Whiskey Jam, which if you're headed to Columbia this weekend, you're going to need it because it's going to be wet and cold at the ball game tomorrow. We'll get to the weather in just a little bit. JC Shurburtt will lead that off at 1:05. Michael Flint will join us at 1:35, and we'll break down pretty much all there is to break down between the Gators and the Gamecocks, which there are some surprising numbers in this series many of you may not realize. So we'll dish all that out coming up in just a little while. But first and foremost, good afternoon to my friend Darren Goldwater as we await a rainy weekend in South Carolina, bud.
Just what you guys have been asking for, right? You want the fans to come out and support the team just to support the players, and you're going to get cold, you're going to get rain, and you're going to get less fans, but that's also going to slow the game down. So that could actually work out in the Gamecocks' favor.
Yeah, it absolutely could. By the way, breaking news from Columbia, South Carolina is official. Jason Brown will start tomorrow night at quarterback for the Gamecocks. Matt Zenitz with On3 Sports has broken that, and via a source, I have confirmed that as well. Jason Brown is expected to go first tomorrow night for Carolina, and hopefully the distance for the Gamecocks as well, as they'll try to pull off an upset against Florida under the lights of Williams-Brice Stadium. That is brand new official news now. I guess it's official, as On3 has broken it, and my source says that, yeah, that's true. So we'll see what it looks like. It will be the third starter this year for South Carolina. I think this has only happened in a season 3 times or so in the last 20 years where there have been at least three starting quarterbacks for the Gamecocks. I'll have to go back and kind of confirm that. But, we're going to talk a lot about this in a little while. It's been expected, but it seems that, though, that news now official for Jason Brown, the transfer. But we always start Friday with a 2-minute drill, and today is no different. If you want to celebrate, head to Atlanta. They're celebrating all day and probably all night and more than likely all weekend for the Braves' first title in 26 years. It is expected to be a sold-out Truist Park for this celebration. The parade is set to go right now. Been looking at pictures all morning of the parade, which, by the way, starting at the wall that Hank Aaron hit for 715 that has obviously been left up in Atlanta commemoratively for a long time. Go Braves! World Series parade of many to come over in Atlanta. Last night, up in Columbia, the Gamecocks won an exhibition in basketball. That's a good start to the season. Don't want to lose those. But here's the kicker, 107 to 89, or 107 to 76, the final score against Benedict. This is the first time they scored over 100 points in an exhibition game under Frank Martin since 2016, 2017. They went to the Final Four that year. I don't know. Anybody watch Lafayette and Georgia State last night? Sean Elliott, former coach for the Gamecocks, offensive line coach and interim head coach when Steve Spurrier resigned in 2015, versus Billy Napier and the Raging Cajuns, 21-17, the final for Louisiana. They win it down there in front of a not sold out crowd. It wasn't even like a 10th full. It was pretty pitiful, to be honest with you.
It wasn't a good game either.
It was not a good game. No. It was not a good game. Colts outscored the Jets 45-30 last night in football, if you happen to catch any of that NFL action. And Berkeley falls to Fort Dorchester last night to open the high school playoffs. Many more playoffs tonight. Darren, you're on TV at 7:30, My TV Charleston. And you've got which game?
We have Cane Bay and Ashley Ridge. Talked to both coaches this morning. They're both pretty fired up about it. A win for both would be big for both programs. One of the coaches, I will not say who, one of them called out David Shelton for saying on yesterday's show both of them would like to lose so they don't have to go to Dutch Fork. He said that's absolute something. Of course we want to win. Of course we want a shot at Dutch Fork. Who doesn't want a chance to end that? The other coach echoed that but didn't call out David Shelton.
I can guess which coach probably called David out on that.
I'm not saying. But both coaches are eagerly anticipating a possible matchup with Dutch Fork.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not saying either. There's no point. Doesn't matter. So we'll let Shelton deal with that tonight. How about that? 12:07 here, Friday afternoon on the JB and Goldwater show. Something actually pretty neat happened last night at the Shane Beamer call-in show at Backstreet's Grill in Columbia. Jerry Spurrier was there. Steve and Jerry are in town, and they were eating dinner last night somewhere right there around Backstreets. I probably could guess where. So Jerry went over. I don't think Steve went. And Alshon Jeffrey also popped in last night and gave Shane a big hug. And so that was a neat neat ordeal on Thursday night for Shane Beamer to see some people that care a lot about him, that he cares a lot about. So I don't know. If somebody can step up and play like Alshon tomorrow night, maybe the Gamecocks will have a chance to take down the Gators up in Columbia. It's going to be a tall task, no doubt. Again, much more on that coming up in just a little while. All right, so Darren, a guy that coached Florida and South Carolina, Will Muschamp, is a featured coach in an article, The Boom of Dead Money in College Sports, which is on ESPN.com right now. It's ESPN analysis of financial records from athletic departments that date back to 2010, January the 1st, 2010. There are some omissions for coaches who were let go last year, some numbers not official and things like that. But all in all, since January 1st, 2010 through January 31st of this year, $533.6 million, $533.6 million in dead money has been paid to football, men's and women's coaches fired without cause. Football coaches and men's and women's basketball coaches fired without cause. $533 million to coaches to leave, go away, And I'm a big country music guy. Okay. I'm a big country music guy. So I really like, and I'm an old school country music guy. It's how I grew up, with the exception, obviously, of Eric Church and a couple others today. But growing up, I listened to the Willie Nelsons of the world. I listened to the Waylon Jennings of the world, and they collaborated on a song, Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And I love how they started this article, this column, because they said, mamas, let your babies grow up to be fired college coaches. Because if you are, not only have you made money, but you've also made more money by being told to get the hell out of here. It's astounding. 116 coaches received more than $1 million in this time frame. 116. And these aren't all head coaches, by the way. Like there are, I mean, I'll get to some of the Carolina ones in a minute, but there are coaches all the time who they fire them, but you still owe them. Might be assistants or offensive coordinators or whatever it is. Nebraska paid the most dead money in women's hoops, $1.4 million. Dead money payouts to strength and conditioning coaches was $5.4 million. And total Power 5 dead money found was $471 million. The SEC, no shocker here, led everybody with like $123.2 million of that. So here are the top 10 schools in which the amount of money that was paid out to coaches to leave. These are the top 10 schools. Okay, Darren, you ready for this? Don't fall out of your rocker. Okay. Auburn first. Auburn in the last 11 years has paid $31.2 million to coaches to go away. All right. More than $18 million paid to Gene Chizik and Gus Malzahn combined. Second was Nebraska, $25.8 million. Bo Pelini, Mike Riley fired within a year of extensions, and the cost of those firings about $12.8 million.
That Nebraska money could go up in a little bit.
Could go up. That's right. Texas, $21.5 million. The total does not include $24 million owed to Tom Herman and staff.
Why not?
Because those numbers aren't finalized officially. They're still negotiating the buyouts for some of them.
Okay.
But it's about $24 million that will eventually be tacked on to this number for Texas since January 1 of 2010. So by my count, Darren, that's $45 million for Texas. So they'll far and away have the lead. Ole Miss, $20.4 million. They're fourth on the list. $8.7 million to move on from Houston Nutt and Matt Luke. But Hugh Freeze didn't cost a penny, remember, because that was with cause, not without. Yep. Kansas has paid $20 million. They fired Turner Gill, Charlie Weiss, and David Beatty. That cost them over $14.4 million combined. Arizona State has paid $18.7 million. The Sun Devils forked over more than 11 to get rid of Coach Todd Graham and more than 2.5 to fire basketball coach Herb Sendek. That was a big one in college hoops. And up next on the list, the South Carolina Gamecocks, $18.6 million. That was Will Muschamp, obviously, the bulk of that at $12.9 million. Now, I'm going to get to just a minute on how actually some money was saved, and it's actually more than people think or remember. Behind the Gamecocks is Oregon.
What's the time frame here? So 18.6 in...
So January 1st, 2010 through January 31st of 2021. So about 11 years, a decade plus in some change. Oregon, A&M, UCLA behind South Carolina. Oregon 16.5, A&M 16.4, and 15.5 UCLA. But the A&M number though did survive. Surprised me at 16.4. I thought that there was more money paid out to Kevin Sumlin, Mike Sherman, and Dennis Franchione. All those guys were in that time period. Plus, there was $2.9 million that was paid to Billy Kennedy, the former basketball coach. But it's not. It's $16.4 million. So the top 10 recipients of cash fired coaches in this time. Number one, numero uno. Could you take a wild guess?
Well, I was going to say Tom Herman, but that's not included.
Yeah, not yet.
Will
Muschamp. $19.2 million, 12.9 from Carolina, 6.3 from Florida, and it's not close behind him. The next closest, 11.8, that went to Charlie Strong. So Will Muschamp got a hell of an agent, over $8 million more than the next highest guy to get paid to leave the program, which happened twice at Florida and at South Carolina. It's astounding stuff there. And I will add this. For the Gamecocks specifically, here is their breakdown. In addition to Will Muschamp, $2.2 million to Darren Horn. Bye-bye. $801,000 to Tavares Robinson. $700,000 to Dan Werner, $665,000 to Lorenzo Ward, $400,000 to Kurt Roper, and $310,000 to John Hoke. And there's another $582,000 that went to 6 other recipients as well that the Gamecocks paid. So Muschamp plus T-Rob plus Dan Werner, which were under Muschamp, that's another 1.5. Roper 1.9. So another, you add it all up, another almost $2.5 million on top of Muschamp for guys that he actually had to fire while he was here as well.
It's wild to think about it, especially when you put it in a vacuum like this. Like if we're to just have the conversation of, oh my God, look how much money has been spent to fire coaches. But it's the bigger picture of how big a business college sports are. That's one. 2, this is a natural part of that. 3, there's a side of this, and a huge side of this, that says, well, if you don't pay that money, you lose more money. Because if you don't pay that money, then you risk losing more games. You risk losing more fans. You risk losing more income. So you're spending that money in order to bring in more, spending money to make money. That's always the hope when you fire one of these guys. And when you hire them and when you agree to these contracts with these buyouts, you understand that. And coaches understand that when the time comes, and it's going to come, every coach will tell you, every coach will be fired except for Oliver Purnell. And other than that part of it, it's just, you put it on just on one, hey, my God, look at this money paid. It's jarring. It is. It can be a jarring number.
Look, people get frustrated over this. I'm not one that does, Darren, because I'm all about the free market, and if Darren Goldwater and if somebody came to us today and said, we're going to pay y'all $30 million to host this exact same show, we would say, okay. And if somebody said, well, you're not worth $30 million, I'd say, apparently I am, because they're going to pay me $30 million. And then if they said, well, you suck and your ratings are terrible, we're also going to pay you $15 million to leave, I'd say, no problem. We're out of here. But that's the market, and those are negotiations. For Carolina fans are frustrated. Many of them are frustrated with Ray Tanner because that deal was even negotiated. So, but I'm not a master negotiator, but you got to make sure that all sides of every story are presented, right, Darren? And all the facts are on the table. And we need to all remember something here. Will Muschamp had just won 9 games, capped off by a bowl victory over Michigan. And you combined his first 2 years, it equaled the same number of wins that Steve Spurrier had, 15. He won 6 in his first year, 9 in his second year. And in that second year, in addition to beating the Wolverines, he also beat Florida, and he also beat Tennessee. They beat NC State that year up in Charlotte. I mean, they went up to Missouri and pounded them. I mean, they won 9 games, and so at that point in time, that's where the market was. Market hadn't really changed much, but that's where the market was, and you needed to go and secure guys, not just in due time, but these guys all have agents now, Darren, and you have an agent, and your job as an agent is to get you what the market says you're worth. And at that point in time, that's pretty much what the market said. Now, with all that being said, that 12.9 paid out to Will Muschamp is not what it could have, or you could even argue it should have been. Not only did they negotiate it down after the firing, but Will Muschamp actually also forfeited a bunch of money. He forfeited his escalator clause, and he also forfeited money on the back end of a new contract that was just an extension after 2018. They extended him after 2018 for recruiting purposes. Everybody does that. If you're not planning on firing somebody, you at least extend them another year or so recruits feel comfortable about committing to a program. That's just the nature of the beast. It's just what they do. But Will Muschamp actually forfeited a bunch of money to have money to go out and pay more to assistants, if anybody remembers that. Hence why Mike Bobo actually got some pretty good cash when he ended up coming in. So, Will Muschamp, that dropped $2.1 million off of his buyout right there before they negotiated it down. So they actually could have paid him about another $4-something million to go away. So Muschamp, when he negotiated down last year, there was a part of him saying, hey, I already gave up a couple $1 million at least. I'm going to give up a little bit more, but it is what it is. He could have held the Gamecocks' feet to the hot fire, and he didn't do it. He negotiated down, and that freed up a little more cash for where they are now.
I think the other part that must be discussed, anytime you're talking about coaches being fired and the money and the astounding money that goes along with coaches being fired, the vast majority of assistants, while they might get some, they don't get anything like it's the whole mamas let your kids grow up to be fired football coaches. head football coaches. Because guys under him, there are a lot of assistants that when a staff change happens, your world is thrown into flux and you don't know what's next. And it is a very frightening time. So for Muschamp to do that and for coaches in general to do that on the front end to say, well, hang on, number one, I want more security for my guys. Number two, if we're going to be a better team, I need more money to go hire better people. Gene Sapikoff has been discussing that since the day Shane Beamer was hired and the money that was available to him to hire his assistants. Again, the last part is primarily if you talk to any coach, head coach, they'll tell you, getting fired, fine. It's going to happen to all of us probably multiple times. I'm not worried about me. I'm not worried about my family. It's the other guys because that becomes a part of your extended family. And they're not protected the way the head coach is. So the head coach isn't just coaching for his job or for his team. He's coaching for the guys that's on his staff. Because if they don't perform and the coach gets fired, these guys are out there trying to find livelihood again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you lump all that in with recruiting. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. RB, I'm not saying that I'm going to necessarily disagree with you. RB chimes in on the Share Healthcare chat lines, which you can all do. ShareHealthcare.com. Make sure your family's taken care of. It's a wild world out there, boys and girls. Make sure you can afford your healthcare. ShareHealthcare.com. RB chimes in and says nobody was coming after Will. Nobody. You don't know that. And I'm not trying to be rude, but you don't we all think that, well, it'll all come out at some point. That's not true. Believe me, about 95% or more of what actually is going on never hits the news cycle. Never. The 5% that does, it seems like everybody knows everything. RB, we don't know that. We don't know that at all. That might be true.
He wasn't a hot name. Could other people going after him? Maybe.
True.
Yeah, he wasn't a hot name. No.
Very, very true. And you also have to remember, as you know, Darren, again, you have an agent, right?
I did. I've had a couple. I do not currently, but yeah, I get it all.
My point is you've had an agent who negotiates for you, and an agent's job, even when you're comfortable in yours, is essentially to shop you around. And I mean, if you're Will Muschamp, if you're Nick Saban, if you're anybody out there, right now, the perfect example might just be up the road at Penn State. We don't know this, but it's all a speculation thing. Hey, James, do you really want to leave Penn State? Nope, but I'd like to be paid a lot more money. All right, well, let's make it look like you might be interested in doing that.
And for the 10th straight year, James, do that again.
Yeah, I mean, and Clint, I hear you. I have a really hard time believing anybody who's coming after him that's fine. I have a hard time believing that too, but I can't prove it. And these agents, their job is to make sure that these coaches get paid what they're worth. And at that point in time, Will Muschamp was worth a raise and an extension. But he didn't get raised to $10 million. I mean, he got, as a matter of fact, he was actually still below a lot of people. But it's what you had to pay, and the program seemingly was headed in the right direction. How many people were upset with Will Muschamp after he won 9 games in his second year, 2 years removed from winning 3 when Steve Spurrier was head coach? I mean, if you say that you were, all right, okay, but nobody was really high on the Muschamp hire. And then all of a sudden he wins 6 in that first year. They beat Tennessee. They had another big win that year. I can't remember who. And then they go out and win 9. Seemingly this thing's headed in the right direction. We need to secure our future here. Will Muschamp at that point in time was recruiting well. The Brian McClendon was just named the new offensive coordinator. People were excited about that. Why? Well, because the Michigan Bowl game, the second half, God, if that's what the offense is going to look like in the future, Will Muschamp was in really good shape. We can't have short-term memory loss here. You got to go back and remember the situations in which these deals are done. And there are some stupid deals that get done, but at that point in time, there was a lot of momentum, Darren, in the Gamecock football program. And the big knock on Will Muschamp's entire career was, well, you can't score points under Will Muschamp. Like, they can't score. But they hired Brian McClendon. It was like, well, they're probably going to be able to score some points. This dude, we know they're going to play defense. They just won 9 games. Oh, my gosh, if they're scoring some points, Carolina's not going anywhere. Like, they're going to be here. They're going to win 8, 9, 10 games a year. This is going to happen. So they locked him up at a rate that was right in line with what it probably should have been in the market, and it didn't work out. And that's the way it goes sometimes. And South Carolina is not exclusive in this category. This happens all over the country every single year.
So in line with that, it happens all over the country every single year. I was thinking of this to just bring this back when you pointed out that Tom Herman's numbers were not part of these millions of dollars that you just threw out, 500 something million in fired money. Do you know that as upset people are in Texas, Tom Herman, he's out. So now Steve Sarkisian's there. Steve Sarkisian has lost by a bigger margin than Tom Herman ever did. He's lost more consecutive games than Tom Herman ever did. He's blown a bigger lead than Tom Herman ever did. And he hasn't coached a full season. But hey, keep negotiating that $24 million or whatever that buyout is.
Yeah, and Tom Herman is not going to let them off the hook.
No, and he shouldn't.
No, there's no chance. He won't.
It's in a contract for a reason. If it doesn't work out, this is what you're paying me.
Yeah. He's not going to let him off the. Some guys just aren't going to let you off the hook. So I mean, it just is what it's where we are. And Darren, very similar to the hindsight arguments that a lot of fans have in every fan base about like facilities. I see it all the time on JC's message boards and things like that. Well, what have the facilities done in South Carolina? Well, it's way too early to start that with the new indoor facilities and stuff like that, especially the new ops building. They haven't even had a full year of recruiting in that number. And this is a small sample size, Darren, of a bigger conversation across the country. But because I know the Gamecocks, I'm talking about them specifically, but you could use this argument anywhere. Number one, that we haven't seen a full cycle of what that building is going to mean. Number one. Number two, it actually has worked. Guys like Jordan Birch and others have been very noted in comments, both publicly and behind the scenes, and saying, this is a wow factor for me. Yes, this is a wow factor for me. So there's that side of it. But here's the other part. The money side, just like the facility side, which is what I was getting at, it's all about keeping up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't not keep up with the Joneses, especially if you're a program like South Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, if you can afford it, Tennessee. Tennessee fans could feel like they're at the top of the SEC still, like they were in 98. They're not. Kentucky, these schools that are quote unquote blue collar, middle class of all of these leagues, like it's already hard enough to compete with Clemson and Georgia and Alabama and Florida just based on who they are. Mm-hmm. So like, you can't not keep up with the Joneses. I had somebody say to me the other day, oh my God, Gamecock's going to waste a bunch of money on ribbon boards inside of the stadium. Who cares? It's not about whether you care or not. It's about, if you don't have it, that's a strike. If you do have it, it might not be noticed, but if you don't, it's a strike. That's just where we are.
Clint just said it very well. I mean, he basically took the words out of my mouth. The facility is important because if you don't have it, then you're behind everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's where it's important. Is it going to win you a recruit? Maybe, possibly. If you don't have it, it can lose your recruit. That's absolute. So you're either keeping up and you're giving yourself the same level playing field as everyone else, and then it comes down to who can actually recruit, or you're starting from behind. And that's where you can't be starting from. So the Gamecocks in putting these facilities together, did it wow Birch? Yes, it did. Would you have gotten Birch without that? I don't know, maybe, but it certainly would have hurt in the eyes of everybody if that facility is not there, because the other places they're visiting do have those facilities. It's simply about keeping up.
Like the one right up the road. I mean, like Clemson would do the same thing if South Carolina had it and they didn't have it. I mean, like the Steve Spurrier, in a conversation I had one time, Steve Spurrier won without facilities. I said, well, back the truck up here. Back in the mid-90s, this wasn't really a thing. Like nobody had thought, well, we should put movie theaters into players' facilities. Like this, I mean, we didn't have anything. It just was what it was. All right. That conversation isn't there. The other side of it is, Steve Spurrier, when he arrived at South Carolina, the first thing he said was, oh, sweet Jesus, we have got to figure some things out around here. First thing he did was just put paint on the damn stadium. Paint, and billboards honoring great players. Like, Carolina hadn't even thought to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and that was just first step of like, hey, the bubble, that's got to go. I used to work out in the bubble. I know exactly what it looks like. Place was a dump. If you were a baseball player, you were trying to hit in some cages in there, or a softball player. Meanwhile, the tennis team is on the tennis courts, and there's a 50-yard football field where cheerleaders are jumping around, and the football team's trying to run drills. This was a real deal. Like this, and people were like, this, you can't. How do y'all want us to win around here if you got the football team in here with 7 other teams, including cheerleaders? It didn't work. So like they had to invest, and Eric Hyman was brilliant about that, but this is we can have this about every school, Darren. Like every single school out there, if they haven't had the conversation, probably need to. So, it's one of those things where you got to keep up with the Joneses, and it all circles back to this article today, which, the market was what it was for Will Muschamp, and they just are where they are because of it. The other side of that, and I know we got to get a break, Darren. I don't have the answer to this, but you can absolutely pose it, and everybody out there has and should. What if you said, no, Will, we're not giving you a raise. This is 1 year. We're not doing it. Do it again in another year, and we'll do it. I don't have that answer because I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if Muschamp would have said, I'm out. Where would he have gone? I don't know. Like to RB's point,
but at this point, does it matter? The answer,
no. I'm just talking about in relation to when you look at all these numbers and you go, how do all these schools pay all these coaches a bunch of money to leave? The negotiation process, we need to understand how they got there. It's not like somebody who's like, you know what, that guy's a loser, we should pay him a lot of money. Like, that's not the way it works. But the flip side of it, which is certainly food for thought, is what if Coach Tanner, and I don't know how much hardball he played, but what if he played hardball and said, I'm not going to give you that? What would have happened? I don't know. I don't have that answer. But I do have the answer of what the market was, and you get paid when you have good years in college football.
Yeah.
So, those are the only answers I have today. It's Friday, and there's rain coming, and I'm going to be sitting. Actually, thank God my seats are covered tomorrow. David, I agree. Football players watching cheerleaders during practice, except for when you're, you're paying attention to them instead of 6'4", 270-pound Jasper Brinkley coming to take your head off of your shoulders, then you're dead. Just because you were looking at a cheerleader. You don't want to do that.
That's game, though. Well, unless you're in practice, but
yeah, it could happen in a game.
But again, it's the price you pay. You make decisions, and it's the price you pay.
Yeah. God, the bubble was a cool place, but it was a dump. Man. All right. It is 12:34 on a Friday afternoon. I hope that all of you across the state will make your way out to your local high schools tonight to watch football if you can. If you don't have the brackets, you can head to schsl.org. That's the South Carolina High School League's website. You can print them off. But make sure you've downloaded our app, the JB and Goldwater app. Darren when he developed it, or when it was developed, last year. Made sure to put the score stream on there, so all the scores, you just pull up our app and keep up with all the high school football that's going on around the state from wherever you are on your phone. One link right there on our app. So even if you don't want our app for any other reason but to look at high school sports or high school scores, the scoreboard, download that if you haven't done it already, and it'll kind of keep you in the loop. Again, Fort Dorchester wins last night, 39-13 over Berkeley. They're now 10-0 on the year, and they will take on the winner of Carolina Forest and Chapin in the next round. Berkeley season ends at 2-6. I still can't believe you can get in the playoffs with a 2-5 record. That's just unbelievable.
A lot of these first round matchups can be duds. That's why I'm looking forward to the one I've got. It should be good.
Should be a good one, no doubt. Yeah. We hope to keep having a good one around here. It's time for a timeout, but when we return, we'll get into a lot of our weekend selections and then roll right into the top of the 1 o'clock hour when JC Shurburtt will join us in the Big Gamecock Preview Show. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show will be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right. We take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle, and we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations: Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, 12:39, Friday afternoon. Welcome back again. No Rafael Esparza today. He's busy in Vegas. It's okay. We'll give him a day off. No big deal. Some news from college football, according to both Brett McMurphy with the Action Network and Pete Thamel with Yahoo Sports. Liberty, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, and New Mexico State are all expected to be formally added to Conference USA today, with an announcement planned this afternoon.
Great.
So, look, what's interesting about that, first of all, Jacksonville State actually, they've got some history.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how that works out for them. But also, Darren, with Liberty going to Conference USA, I kind of wonder what that may or may like. Do you feel like at some point in time somebody is going to go ahead and pull the string and go after Hugh Freeze? Because I do.
Probably, if they continue to have success, if he continues to stay clean and his name out of the headlines for the wrong reasons, then yeah, I think at some point that's logical if that's something that he wants as well. But look, with all this realignment,
because Marshall's going to the Sun Belt, right? They're leaving Conference USA.
The Sun Belt has become a major Group of Five league, if not the number one clear cut Group of Five with their football moves. So Conference USA trying to balance this out. Basically, they're just saying, hey, let's see if we can survive. So let's pull these teams in, and by virtue of number of teams, we will survive. But this doesn't move the needle. I mean, I think most people saw this and had the exact same reaction as I did. Like, you're adding these teams? Great. Good job.
Yeah,
What's next?
Well, Liberty's been an independent, so they're going to now be a part of a league. So we'll see kind of how that affects them from I'm pulling up their schedule right now. I'm just interested to see who they schedule anyway.
They play a lot of ACC teams. But the other thing about Liberty is there's a whole lot of baggage with Liberty. So there was some thought that a conference wouldn't take them, that this shows a little bit of desperation that Conference USA is taking them. Because, I mean, there's been pushback from folks around the ACC. Like, I don't know how often everyone in the ACC wants to be scheduling Liberty with what's going on at Liberty. So, I mean, that's a conversation for another day. But, it's just not something that moves. The Conference USA is trying to survive, and maybe this does it,
Yeah,
by
they probably
virtue of having enough teams, right?
That'd be an interesting conversation to have, too. What is the best Group of Five? I mean, obviously, the American has something to say about that. I mean, headlined at this point in time by Cincinnati. But, I mean, SMU, UCF, Houston. I mean, those are all pretty good programs, amongst others, right? But, and then, I give a lot. I like the Mountain West. I've always liked the Mountain West. I think it's a neat league, and I like the way they play out there. And not just because Wyoming's out there, who started the year 4-0, and they're now 0-4 since playing in the league. So come on, guys, what are we doing? It's the Sun Belt, and we're a little biased, or at least I am, because the Sun Belt is in our neck of the woods. We're surrounded by it, App State and Coastal and Georgia State and others. But it's a good league, and it's not just in football. I mean, it's a great baseball league. It's a pretty good basketball league. And I think it's only going to improve.
It did. It got better. I mean, the additions of the Sun Belt made that league even better. It's a good league. I mean, Clay Helton didn't just say, I'm going to go from LA to Statesboro because I want to go coach Georgia Southern. I mean, there's an appeal. If I can go have some success at Georgia Southern, maybe there's somewhere else that I can go. That I assure you that's part of this thought process there for Clay Helton.
Well, good luck, Clay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You better not lose there, boy. They will run you out of town. Atlanta today, not only is it happening, obviously, because of the Braves and the parade, but also tonight, for those of you that may have missed this, and I know some of you don't care, but when you hate on my guys, I will hate right back on you. Tonight at Mercedes-Benz, it's George Strait and Eric Church. Holy moly. I that would probably be my final hours at a concert with those two. So the center of the universe is in Atlanta, Georgia tonight. Those of you that are headed that way, enjoy. All right, before we get into our picks, Darren, a couple of quick notes from the SEC. Tennessee will not impose a bowl ban following or as they await the NCAA's ruling. I don't blame them. Just whatever. Just go. And then some really disturbing news out of Athens, Georgia. They are going to, of course, be awaiting some evidence and investigation in this, but The Georgia Bulldogs have indefinitely suspended starting linebacker Adam Anderson, who has been accused of raping a woman. That was what sources told ESPN yesterday. He is a senior out of Rome, Georgia, and he has not been arrested, and he has denied this allegation through his attorney. But according to Athens Clarke County Police, their incident report, a 21-year-old woman told police she went to a house in Athens, Georgia, between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. on Friday last week. After having drinks, the woman said she woke up while Anderson, unfortunately, was, you could take it from there, right? She did report it to police later that day, and he did play in Georgia's 34-7 victory over Florida down in Jacksonville last week. Of course, none of this information had gotten to Georgia yet, but it has now. So he has been suspended until further notice. All right. Want to make some picks?
Let's do it.
We should do it. We'll save a couple until the end of the show. Auburn and A&M, Clemson and Louisville, Florida and South Carolina. We'll pick all of those with Michael Flint. 115 and 66. Am I? DG 116 and 65. We pick a lot of games around here, and today, no different. Tonight at 7:30 on ESPN2. It's amazing. Boston College, people were high on them. They have not won a game in the ACC. They're 0-4 in the league, 4-4 overall. Virginia Tech is 4-4, 2-2, and they're in Chestnut Hill. It is going to be cold up there tonight. Both these teams know all about cold weather. Darren, the Hokies are 2.5-point favorites. Can Braxton Burmeister lead them into Chestnut and out with a victory?
My gut tells me Boston College. I was listening to Packer and Durham a little bit this morning, and there was some floating around of Jerkovich coming back and playing. I don't know about this game or maybe later in the year. I don't know why I'm leaning Boston College here. It makes no sense to lean Boston College here, but I'm going to pick Boston College.
No. Yeah, I can't. No. I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. They're, what did we say last week about the Hokies going to Georgia Tech? Well, I can't pick them because we don't know anything about them. I don't know what we know about a lot of the teams in the ACC anymore, and somehow they went there and won the game. So what do we actually know about Georgia Tech?
Expect it to be a good game. That's what you should expect because all of the games in the ACC have been very entertaining.
They've been good games. Yeah, you're probably going to be right on this because every time I pick Virginia Tech to win, they lose, and lose, they win. So I'm going to pick them to win tonight, which means that they're probably going to lose. Tomorrow, Ohio State is at Nebraska. This one's going to kick off at noon on Fox as part of the big noon kickoff. The Buckeyes are 14.5-point favorites. The over-under is 66. Nebraska is 3-6, 1-5 in the Big Ten. And boys and girls, Ohio State knows exactly where they stand in the college football playoff rankings, and they have been putting it together. C.J. Stroud, talk about Heisman candidates. By the end of the year, he might be on top of the podium. We'll see. Darren, what do you think about this ballgame?
I like Ohio State. I think Ohio State, first of all, Ohio State needs to continue to impress. That's important, even though if they take care of business, they're going to be there in the end. I think this game could be closer than many people are expecting it to be. You've been saying this for a while, and you're right. Nebraska's not nearly as bad as their record. I do think, though, as C.J. Stroud gets a little bit healthier, I do expect them to pull away, particularly late in the game. I expect them to win relatively comfortably.
Can't say I disagree with that, my friend. I think Ohio State's they're rolling. Nebraska, if they lose tomorrow, they're going to be out of the bowl picture. And then what does that mean for Scott Frost? So it's a big day. But Ohio State's going to win, and Darren, they're going to cover that 14.5. Just an FYI to everybody. Again, keep an eye on this Stroud kid down the stretch here. He's going to – I got a feeling he works himself into this whole Heisman mix conversation thing, man. I mean –
word came out, a day ago, maybe today, that he had injured his shoulder in that Week 1 win against Minnesota and has been just slowly working it back, and only now is it starting to feel right. The question isn't him. The question is Ohio State's defense.
That's right.
That's the big question. Nebraska probably doesn't have enough to really stretch that.
Yeah. The part of our picks, as Darren has tweeted, is our post-up careers weekend resume. Obviously, Florida at Carolina, Clemson at Louisville, LSU, Bama. We will pick all of these games today, but one that's also a part of that is what we're going to pick next, and it is 76.5, the over-under in Kenan Stadium tomorrow at noon on ABC. You mentioned the ACC has had a lot of fun ones, and this one could be right there with them. Wake Forest is ranked 9th in the newest college football playoff rankings. They're 2.5-point dogs at 4-4 North Carolina, who held their own for the most part last week up at Notre Dame. I don't think they will tomorrow, though. I believe in Wake this weekend. I think they'll make more plays. There is going to be no defense, and I think Wake will go into Chapel Hill, and I think they're going to win, Darren. I'm going to give it 9-0, 6-0, Wake.
I agree with you, and let's double up on some sponsors, because not only is this part of our weekend resume, it's also part of buy or sell. Are you buying or selling that Wake Forest stays unbeaten? Brought to you by Jeff McCarragher of Carolina One Real Estate. Both of us are going to buy that. Both of us will buy that Wake Forest stays unbeaten, even though they're underdogs at North Carolina.
Yeah, and if they win the game, it will not wrap up the Atlantic division.
Yeah.
It will not wrap up the Atlantic division. Remember, they play 9, and they still have to play Clemson and who? NC State. That's your top 3 in the division. All right, Liberty is at Ole Miss. Can Hugh Freeze head back to Oxford and pull off an upset? It's a noon kick on the SEC network, Darren.
The easy answer and the short answer to your question is no. They cannot go into Ole Miss and win the game. But I do want to at least peek in on it and just see the quarterback battle there.
Absolutely.
Because, as you've pointed out, right now, these are the 2 top guys slated in the NFL draft. There's a long way to go, but these could be the top 2 quarterbacks picked. So it's worth peeking at this one just to see. And Willis has fared well. I mean, he's fared well against FBS competition and Power 5 competition. So I expect him to play well, but I don't expect him to win.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how many points Liberty puts on the board. The over-under 67. They are 9.5-point dogs. Willis, by the way, has run for almost 700 yards this year in 9 games. He's dual threat to a T for Liberty. But Ole Miss certainly wins the game. Good luck with this one, David. Georgia Tech and Miami tomorrow. This one's going to kick at 12:30 on ESPN 3 because nobody knows who the hell Miami and Georgia Tech are. Miami, though, is a 10.5-point favorite at home. Tech fell at home last week to Va Tech. Miami all of a sudden has won a couple of ball games, beating back-to-back NC State and Pittsburgh. They're both ranked opponents, and they'll win 3 in a row. They're going to take down Georgia Tech tomorrow.
A lot of weird stuff from Miami. Number 1, this freshman quarterback. Is he going to keep this thing rolling? Number 2, we went from 3 weeks ago, we're going to have a fired coach, and Miami doesn't put any money into facilities or into football, and nobody cares, to all of a sudden an article coming out in The Athletic of, wait a second, not only is Manny Diaz potentially the future of this program, but now we're going to be all in. I don't know. I think Miami finds a way to win this game. I think it's going to be closer. I think Georgia Tech could very well have a chance to win this late. I'll pick Miami since we're only picking straight up.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally with you on that. Georgia Tech, Miami falls asleep at the wheel often. And is this finally the guy? Is this finally the quarterback? Every year there's a new one. Is this it? I mean, Derek King obviously is not new to the sport. He's been playing college football since the early 2000s, but at least it seems that way. Tate Martell, Derek King, I mean, N'Kosi Perry, they've had so many QBs come through there. This is going to be the guy. This is going to be the guy. We'll see. I don't know what it's going to look like, but Miami will win the game. Watch out, Michigan State. They're at Purdue, and they're only 3-point favorites. Purdue? What? Really? Yeah, well, 5-3, 3-2 in the Big Ten. State is in the top 4 in the college football rankings, obviously, that came out this week. There they are, firmly in the mix. You keep winning, Michigan State. You're in it. Purdue is coming off of a 28-23 squeaker at Nebraska, and a couple of weeks ago they did upset Iowa before falling to Wisconsin. I'm not buying it, though. I think Michigan State covers, and I think Michigan State wins. Kenneth Walker leads them there.
My personal money also says Michigan State wins this game. I get the whole Michigan State. They haven't been big favorites anywhere, and they've had squeakers. They had squeaker against Rutgers. They had a squeaker against Indiana. I understand why the line is where it is, especially coming off a big emotional win, historic win over Michigan. I get that. But when you have a guy like Kenneth Walker, when you're as balanced offensively as this team can be, I just don't think Purdue's aerial attack is enough, a one-dimensional enough to get through Michigan State. I like them, and I like them to cover.
Good pick. Oklahoma State is at West Virginia. Oklahoma State now has their first loss of the year. They're 3.5-point favorites on the road against the Mountaineers. Let's see here. Last week, Iowa State, they burned couches. Oh, I think they're going to burn them again this week. Another upset's going to happen. Morgantown is dangerous in November, man. Neil Brown has finally got the offense clicking a little bit. They win. Another upset for West Virginia.
I'll switch up with you. I'm finally going to actually ride on Oklahoma State here. I just don't have the buy-in on me here. West Virginia knocked off Iowa State. They're not going to come off again back-to-back weeks, or 2 out of 3 weeks. I may have gotten the weeks confused there. I'm going Oklahoma State or West Virginia, though.
How about Baylor at TCU? TCU now without Gary Patterson. I think Baylor goes down there and takes care of business. 3:30, Fox.
Part of me actually wanted to go TCU. There's been a pattern this year so far. We've seen it in a couple of places when a coach has been fired or a coach has been told at the end of the year you're going to be done, where the team has played well. It happened at Southern Cal. It happened at Washington State. It happened at LSU. I think TCU plays well. I think Baylor wins the game.
Baylor. All right, a few quick picks to pass along. Coastal at Georgia Southern. Darren, who you got?
Coastal.
Yeah, I'm with you. Coastal wins at Georgia Southern. LSU at Alabama. Can LSU keep it close?
Oh, that's a better question. Is LSU going to win? Yeah, for like 7-8 minutes. Yeah, they can keep it close.
I think they keep it closer longer than you think they do. I think they hang in there for a while, but Bama will do what Bama does, and they'll pull the way down the stretch. Boise is at Fresno, 7 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Boise State generally is the one who's being hunted. Now it's Fresno. Who wins? I think I like Fresno at home, but you never know with Boise.
Yeah, I like Fresno at home. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know a ton about either one of these teams. I know Boise's had a couple of good wins. I know they're led by a former Boise State player, and he's got them playing better than I think some people thought. But I like Fresno at home. Keep it rolling.
Another quick one here. Oregon at Washington. Anything to worry about for the Ducks?
Yeah, the Ducks have shown that there can be stuff to worry about. I like them to win, but right now for Oregon, style points are going to start mattering for Oregon here because we're coming down the stretch. There will be questions depending on how things play out. It matters right now for Oregon. Joe Moorhead needs to be calling things very well. That defense, as physical as they are, Oregon wins the game, but style points start to matter now.
Yeah, Washington hangs around for a while. Oregon pulls away, and they end up covering this one late. They win at Washington, 7:30 on ABC. And one more final quick one here. 22nd ranked Iowa at Northwestern at 7 o'clock at Ryan Field. Anything to worry about for Iowa?
A lot. They're a mess. But if it was anyone other than Northwestern, I'd pick the opponent. But it's Northwestern. I can't. I just can't. So I'm picking Iowa and just hanging on by a thread because, my God, they look very bad right now.
I'm with you. There's something really strange about this game. There's going to be nobody there. It's going to be a dead atmosphere at Ryan Field, and something tells me that Iowa's okay. Let's kick it into gear, and they'll win it. But it's going to take a while to get there, and it's not going to be warm in Evanston either. All right, Texas at Iowa State, 7:30 on Fox Sports 1.
I've been riding Texas for a while. I'm finally flipping. I'm going Matt Campbell and the Cyclones. Let's see if I can get a Texas pick right.
Yeah, I agree. 6.5 in favor of Iowa State. I don't know that they cover it, but I do think they win over the Longhorns, dropping them to 4-5, 2-4 in the Big 12. In the SEC, Mississippi State is at Arkansas at 4 o'clock on the SEC network. Mississippi State is surprising. They have 3 losses. They also have 3 wins inside the top 20 this year. It's the most in FBS. And they got to go see if the Hogs are going to call them home or not. 4 o'clock, SEC Network, Arkansas 4.5-point favorites at Razorback Stadium.
Where'd Arkansas go? No one talks about them anymore, right? I mean, they were the darlings of the early season, then they just fall off the map. Mississippi State. I'm going to take Mike Leach, Mississippi State.
Dude, Mississippi State's defense has only given up 23 total points in the last 2 games. Watch out. Arkansas wins. And finally, before our break, Tennessee and Kentucky could be the closest game in the SEC played tomorrow. It's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. It is going to be chilly. in Lexington. The Vols on the road are, believe it or not, 1-point favorites over Kentucky. Why is that? Their offense. They can score. Kentucky has been scuffling 6-2, 4-2 in the league. They've lost 2 in a row. They've given up 61 combined points in the last 2 weeks. They've scored a combined 30. They lose 3 in a row.
Tennessee wins the game. I'm staying consistent. If you've been listening to this show for the last, all of football season, I've been higher than most on Tennessee and lower than basically everyone on Kentucky. I'm staying consistent.
Yeah, Tennessee has also lost a couple of games in a row, Mississippi and Alabama. But the last I checked, both of their offenses are really, really good and much better than Kentucky's. Tennessee gets them. In Lexington, I'm with you. JB and Darren on the Vols bandwagon, at least for tomorrow. All right, timeout. We'll pick Carolina, Clemson, and Auburn and A&M later on. But when we return, Motley Rice presents the Big Gamecock Preview Show right here, part of JB and Goldwater. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and 2 others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
To Rice, touchdown! He caught it in traffic. Big sack for the Gamecocks. JJ Inigbari.
Walks it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
JB and Goldwater presents the Gamecock Preview Show, proudly brought to you by Motley Rice. Our history makes us bold. Our boldness makes history. And now it's time for some Gamecock football.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Back to Thomas Bindi, and Bindi spins into the open, and he's on his way. It's a tie-ball game if they can get the extra point. 20, 15, 10, 5,
There's never been more excitement about South Carolina football than there is right now.
I've heard all the stories of the great George Rogers out back in 1980. He made the whole nation holler. And I've seen that photograph of young Steve Tannehill up in old Death Valley signing his name on the field. Yeah, and I love the year 2001 at Bill Williams Brass Rock. Oh, what else can I say? I'm just a big old car.
Final hour of the work week. Welcome back. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases. MotleyRice.com. Served by Whiskey Jam. It's going to be chilly tomorrow. We'll tell you just how chilly in a minute. Make sure you've got your Whiskey Jam, Blackberry Whiskey Jam, or regular. You can get it Greens in Columbia if you're going to be at the ball game or close to it, and many liquor stores across the state, thanks to our friend Patrick Davis for that. Speaking of Columbia, that's the home of Williams-Brice Stadium, where they seat 77,559. And tomorrow night, we'll welcome the 4-4, 2-4 in the SEC Florida Gators. Take on South Carolina, 4-4, 1-4 in the SEC. Taylor Zarzer will call it. Matt Stinchcomb will analyze it. And Alyssa Lang will roam the sidelines. She's a Gamecock herself. Hi, Alyssa, and welcome back to town as part of the SEC Network's 7:30 broadcast. Todd, Tommy, and Jamar will have it on the Gamecock IMG Sports Network. Clearly 107.5 The Game. If you're in the Midlands and elsewhere across the state, make sure you've got the South Carolina app downloaded. Shane Beamer, 4-4 in his first year. We all know that at Carolina. Dan Mullen is 33-13 in his fourth year down at Florida. He's 3-0 all time versus South Carolina as the coach of the Florida Gators. In addition to that, Florida is 11-4 in true road games under Dan Mullen, but just 1-2 this year, both losses at Kentucky and LSU. Tomorrow night, it's going to be 51 degrees at kickoff. That's not the big deal. The 52% chance of rain and the 13-mile-an-hour winds, that's cause for a concern. Carolina has not run the football well this year, and they're going to have a new starting quarterback tomorrow night, as Jason Brown will at least go out there and take the first snap of the ball game. So we'll see if that can find a way to shift into Carolina's favor. We're going to talk a lot about it. We know this, though. The Gators do run the football well, and a wet field is going to be something they're used to. They're from the swamp, if you don't remember. JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com, once again joining us this week here on the Big Gamecock Preview Show to break it all down. Good afternoon, my friend, and once again, happy game week. We gave you last Friday off. We figured we didn't need to break down the bye game.
No. And I could have made a prediction. Gamecocks, people are like, oh, at least the Gamecocks won't lose. And that's funny because, every Monday – because I try not to get on the site on Sundays. JB, I rarely take phone calls on Sundays after Gamecock games.
True.
Because I like to cool off or put it in perspective or whatnot. And usually I get back on the site and there's 7 direct messages on the site. Like, why did you ban me? Why did you ban me? Why did you ban me? And of course I never ban anybody because I'm not on the site on game days. But I'm like this omnipotent, like Amadeus type movie poster creature that lords over the message board all the time. But I noticed I had no messages this week. So that was very peaceful. I was like, wow, everybody kind of enjoyed their weekend for a change. So that was good. Yeah, I'm in a great mood today. I got a higher than expected phone bill and I have Richard Marx in my head.
Oh, that's nice.
Endless Summer Nights.
Yeah. Well, wait a second. Didn't you text me the other day that you were playing that song?
That's probably why it's in my head.
This was the other night. I know you were out watching the Braves game at a bar, and you texted me and said that this song was playing.
I know, because it's just such a hilarious song to come up, because back in 7th grade, if you remember, that was some serious stuff. You go to the beach, meet a girl, maybe she's from Ohio or something. You sit out there that last night before she goes home, you're holding hands, kissing, maybe doing some other stuff, depending on how old you are. And then that song comes on, and it was It was a pretty solid ballad back then, but not appropriate for 2021.
Probably not. Hoping there's no ballad to be played tomorrow night either, JC, at Williams-Brice Stadium. Before we get more into this game, though, let me tell you about how our friends at iHelp Consulting can help you. It's owner of iHelp Consulting, iHelpConsulting.com, joining us here during the JB and Goldwater show. He's got an incredible story to tell about a business he recently really, really helped. Daniel, tell us about it.
That's right. A healthcare facility saved about $50,000 in payment processing fees. $50,000. We take pride in helping people grow their business and improve their lifestyle.
Living out their dreams.
That's right. So ask yourself, how can I help you?
Awesome. You've helped many, and we are going to help you help more. Daniel, thank you. How can I help you? Help yourself by visiting iHelpConsulting.com or call or text Daniel at 843-372-5713. That's 843-372-5713. iHelpConsulting.com. iHelp Consulting has helped a lot of people. iHelpConsulting.com can help you. Ask yourself that question. How can I help you? A South Carolina win, JC, over Florida would snap a 3-game losing streak to the Gators, and it would also even this series. A lot of people don't realize this, to 6-6 in the last 12 meetings. But overall, all time, it's 29-9-3 in favor of the Gators. Florida is 5-1 in the last 6. That average margin of victory, boys and girls, only 8.4 points per game. Florida has not owned this series like people think. It's just been blowout after blowout after blowout. Those were the 90s and the early 2000s. Carolina, Steve Spurrier flipped this thing, and since then, they haven't won a lot under Will Muschamp. We'll get to more of that in a minute. But they haven't been necessarily blown out of all the games either. The last win for Carolina was in Columbia. It was 28-20 in a really strange 2017 matchup in November. Carolina's 5-3 versus Florida in the month of November since 2010, and they're 3-2 versus the Gators in Columbia since 2010. The average margin of victory, 6. The average margin of loss, 10.5. Each of the last 8 games in the series, Mr. Shurburtt, have been decided by 14 points or less. I want to add a couple of other quick nuggets in here. Todd Grantham, DL coach, the defensive line coach at Virginia Tech when Shane Beamer was a freshman up there back in 95. And Mike Peterson, of course, played for Steve Spurrier at Florida, so he gets to see the Gators again this year. He is a Hall of Famer. He should be. He's one of the best players ever played on their defense. But the one I want to talk about is Torian Gray, because he is now a Gamecock. And last year, he was a Gator, and before that. And he was a scapegoat for Todd Grantham to hang on. His defense has been awful the last 2 weeks. They've given up 84 points. Torian, you're not doing a good enough job. You probably need to leave. JC, I ask you this question. How much does Torian Gray help South Carolina? Look, they got to help themselves on offense, blocking people, catching passes, the things that you do. But how much schematics-wise can Torian Gray help this club? He knows Todd Grantham inside and out.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's listening to who in terms of the offensive staff. I was going to say, as far as a defensive game plan goes, coaching secondary at Florida and going against this offense in practice with the quarterback runs and things like that every day, it probably does help to have somebody a little familiar with it. I don't think Clayton White at Western Kentucky saw an offense like this. It's a very unique offense. I actually think, in addition to the Briles Tree offenses, the Mullen offense in the SEC is an ideal system to run. I mean, because you've got a running quarterback, no problem. You got a passing quarterback like last year, no problem. You want to run outside, no problem. You attack the perimeter, no problem. You want to run up the middle, power run, no problem. I'd almost like to see at some point what this offense could do, Darren, at like a Penn State, because for the Big Ten, it gets really interesting, I think, in a lot of ways. But, yeah, so that could provide, some, help, I guess, defensive game planning-wise. I told myself I wasn't going to be negative about the offense here on the show. I know on Wednesday I said some things that Marcus Satterfield may have said Wednesday gave me hope, and then I went back and actually listened to the press conference. I was reading a quote when I got somewhat happy, and he qualified that statement by saying, I'm making this up. So I'm back to like, oh, boy. So I don't know, how much good that will do. I do know this. I know Todd Grantham's defense can make you look silly, but it also can give you a lot of opportunity. And I know this as well, and I hope that the Gamecock offensive staff watched Marcus Satterfield's former co-coaches or analysts with the Panthers and saw the LSU game that they played where a simple counter play that they hadn't really ran all year came out. LSU couldn't run the football for squat before that one. They ended up running for like 287 yards just by finding something, and they kind of came alive in the run game that day. So in Baton Rouge. So we'll see we'll see what happens. Torian Gray to me, and look, everybody knows who's listened to me talk about college football over the years that I've never been a fan of Grantham's defense. I think it's way too much feast or famine. I think it's fine to run at a place like Mississippi State where, you're going to have to gamble some and things like that. But a place like Florida, you get enough talent down there. There's no need to gamble, and especially at University of Georgia. So, there's some opportunities. And quite frankly, you mentioned the closeness of the series. The Gamecocks have run the ball pretty well against Florida the last 3 years. They've scored pretty well against Florida the last 3 years. It's just those tricky fourth quarter adjustments, unfortunately, have gone to Mr. Grantham. And another thing about the closeness of this series, guys, the last big blowout for the Gators, I don't think South Carolina's ever really blown them out.
Oh, yeah, they have in the swamp to win the East.
Oh, the 22-point. That was kind of a championship game, so I guess I don't think about that as a blowout. But, yeah, that was a big one. Was the 2012 game. Arguably one of Will Muschamp, maybe his most impressive win at Florida. Beat a top 10 South Carolina team 44-11.
Yeah, well, but you remember everything. Offensively, Florida didn't have 200 yards of offense in that game. Carolina just continued to give the football right back to them.
First play of the game. I mean, they go empty, and Luchez Purifoy, I think, came off the edge corner. Muschamp's corner blitzes are pretty good, and he came off the edge and caused a turnover. And that was also the game where Muschamp infamously yelled at the CBS reporter and said, and overcome the adversity on the field. I got fired up. There's a little clip of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Coach Boom, but that was the last time it really got away. Now, last year it could have with that team Florida had, but hey, the Gamecocks made some substitutions at safety. Jalen Dickerson came in and actually played well. He's not playing this weekend, but because they picked on R.J. Roderick quite a bit. And the Gamecocks, Colin Hill, Kevin Harris, those guys drove back down the field, scored, and then there was an infamous drive at the end of the game where they ran about 8 minutes off the clock to try to bring it within a touchdown. And then Colin Hill missed Shi Smith just off his hands that would have made it a one-score game. So this has been a very competitive series. I think that, when you look at the 2018 game, that was very significant for Dan Mullen and Will Muschamp both. It was like ships passing in the night.
Let's stop there. Let's stop there and let's go to that game. I still today, JC, you and I have had these conversations off the air. I think that was the turning point of Will Muschamp's tenure at South Carolina. Gamecocks are leading that game 31-14, about to go into the fourth quarter, and they lost. They were outscored 21-0 down the stretch. They lose the game 35-31, and it was like the whatever sales were up and flying for Will Muschamp and a new contract and this, that, and the other. They just deflated.
It was probably it was sort of I don't want to say the first red flag of the Muschamp era because I really believe that was Kentucky his second year, but at that point, that season was kind of strange because, you started off with this big hyped up game with Georgia, blowout. Everybody's like, well, finally they can go beat Kentucky. And then Jake Bentley was just off, all kinds of drops by the receivers. The Texas A&M game didn't start well after, Michael Scarnecchia beats Missouri in the rain. But then Gamecocks kind of got it going. Second half against A&M, they came back, they closed the gap, and then came from behind to beat Tennessee, came from behind in the fourth quarter to beat Ole Miss. They go to the Swamp. They're coming off a 21-point loss at home to Missouri. Okay, yep. Same Missouri Gamecocks beat. Jake's throwing the ball, one of the best game plans I think Brian McClendon had at South Carolina. Really creative stuff. And the defense was stopping them, slowing them, and it was 31-14. Well, then all of a sudden, Dan Mullen just decides, hey, we're just going to run the football no matter what. And then Todd Grantham, to his credit, rolls a safety in the box, so it made the RPO reads that they were running a little bit more difficult, if it was an RPO, but it made the read for Jake more difficult. Jake's making the right read. However, they've got an extra guy. It just kind of got confusing. No adjustments. Gamecocks were not, contrary to popular belief, going turtle shell. I think they may have won had they done that. But they were snapping the ball with 22 seconds to go on the play clock, staying aggressive like people want. And that was just a bitterly disappointing loss. Carolina wins that game.
That would have been their 6, by the way. They would have had at least 8 wins that year.
Yeah, 8 wins. They're a team that, I don't think they beat Clemson, but I do think they go on and beat your Akrons and your Chattanoogas, and they get to 8, and maybe it's a better bowl than the Belt Bowl, probably the Gator, something like that.
That's right.
And Muschamp all of a sudden is 2-1 against the Gators, where he just left. Mullen is sitting there. They don't get to the Peach Bowl that year. They don't get, the big finish. And, maybe things are a little different. Maybe, things are a little different in recruiting. You get a couple extra recruits, and I think at that point, at the end of year 3, people are pretty happy with Will Muschamp, but blowing that lead was very, as Lou Holtz said, it's awfully difficult. It's awfully difficult to blow that lead like that. And it's just brutal. I mean, Gamecocks have had games like that where they've come back, like Missouri in 2013 over the years, and they've had games where they've blown it. And that was just a very deflating loss, I think, for the entire program. For Jake Bentley, for Brian McClendon as a play call. I mean, you name it, And so that was difficult. And then the next year, with another opportunity, Carolina's sitting there playing pretty well, coming off a win over Kentucky and a win at Georgia, a huge upset. It was raining in 2019. Tavian Feaster, Dowdle gets hurt early. Tavian Feaster comes in there and starts running wild against the Gators. And then, you're sitting down there, close to the goal line. You've been running wild all day, and you decide to throw a pass, and I think Polinsky threw a pick. And once again, Florida owned the fourth quarter. And
that was you pair that with the poor officiating, and the one play in particular that's in everybody's mind, JC, which was the Damian Pierce 75-yard touchdown run. This guy has been in a Florida uniform for seemingly ever. And it was, and it was a play number. Yes, Izzy Mukwamu was held for 40 or 50 yards down the field. Anybody with eyeballs in their head could see that. But the play should have never happened because the right tackle stood up, and everybody in the ballpark knew that as well. I was sitting there and watching it like everybody else, and we all were looking around going, there's a flag out there somewhere, right? The right tackle stood up. Nope, no flag. But, we're not going to go back because there's no guarantee had they not run that play that Carolina would have won the game. But what I'm going back to is that those 2 years built up a lot of frustration for South Carolina in this series and just in general. With it just compounded with some of the frustrations that were already ongoing in the football program led by Coach Muschamp. I mean, JC, this is a series that Steve Spurrier turned around for South Carolina. I mentioned that earlier. The last 12 contests, if the Gamecocks can pull a major upset tomorrow, they're 6-6. What? Whoever dreamt of that in the Florida-South Carolina series? So Steve Spurrier stopped this thing almost on a dime by beating him in his first year in Columbia when nobody left the ballpark and Urban Meyer was roaming the sidelines for Florida. And then it led to, it's led to a lot of great moments, but then those two frustrating moments, I get to all that to say this. If you're a Carolina fan and you're wondering whether or not you should be going to the game tomorrow night, grab your alcohol and get down to Williams-Brice Stadium. If nothing else, scream at the top of your lungs because of what happened in 2018 and again in 2019.
Absolutely. And yeah, Spurrier started 1-4, against the Gators. And certainly he took a couple of beatings there, but then
they also won the national championship too.
Yeah, they lost the national championship team 56-6. They lost to Tebow's Heisman team in 2007, 51-31. Then that next year, 2009, and Florida was good that year. They're ranked number 1 on a winning streak. They come to Williams-Brice. There's a drop pass by Mo Brown late.
Yep.
That kind of cost them. Garcia played a good game, and the Gamecocks played them really close. I mean, it's 24-14. That game was in doubt, and that was the game the Gamecocks wore some the combat uniforms or whatever.
Yep.
And you kind of got the sense after that one, you're like, man, this team's like 500 right now, but shoot, they beat Ole Miss when they were in the top 5, and shoot, they played Florida off their feet, and then lo and behold, the next week they beat Clemson, and then the next year, they go down to the Swamp, and really probably one of the biggest. It has to be a top 2 win in school history. It's probably, that Alabama win and then that one that year, both in 2010, were huge. Alabama was number 1 on the streak, and then this one was for a division championship down there in Spur's old stomping ground. So I don't know. I like this series. I've never been like a Gator hater or anything. I respect their fans. I think that they're rabid and good. They're kind of what I call a new money fan base, which means, they weren't really all that good till 1990. But now expectations are through the roof, and that's fine. I mean, it's Florida Gators. So
I'm going to disagree with you there, though, JC. There wasn't a fan in the SEC in the 90s that cared for Florida because of what Spurrier did to literally every team that he played.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was a Gator hater.
He got there in 90, Before that, they're kind of you kind of thought about Emmitt Smith and all stuff like that. But it was I've never hated Florida. I've always thought they were, a good fan base to deal with and stuff. And, I'm just it's going to be interesting to see, because I'll say this too. And I was told this by a couple of coaches that have coached at South Carolina and Florida. One year we were talking about the Florida-Arkansas game, and it was relayed to me, those kids down there, they do not like bad weather that's cold, and they had to go to Arkansas in November, and they're like, they'll get out there and quit. And sure enough, you watch that game that year, they're playing a Brett Bielema-led Arkansas team. Arkansas beat the snot out of them, 31-10. That was when our man Jim McElwain was coaching the Gators. And all that. So there's times when they do play kind of in inclement weather, and they're a little uncomfortable with it, as a program. And that's the case with most Florida schools. That's why you see FSU go up to Boston College and get shellacked and things like that. So if there's any advantage to the weather this weekend, it's probably to South Carolina, just because those Gator guys don't really like playing in that type of weather historically.
Motley Rice causes not just cases. If you've been impacted by Takata airbags, faulty Takata airbags, you need to head to MotleyRice.com. If you know somebody who has, head to MotleyRice.com as well. All right, 6.1 yards per carry. JC, you mentioned the weather. Florida leads the FBS, number 1 in yards per carry, 6.1, 242.6 rushing yards per game. That is 6th in the country. By the way, that 246, it's 111 more a game than they ran for last year. But they also had a guy named Kyle Trask who was pitching in around the yard. Emory Jones is going to be the starting quarterback tomorrow because Anthony Richardson is out. He's expected to go the distance. And as announced earlier today by Matt Zenitz first, we'll give On3 Sports the credit here. They deserve it. Jason Brown will be the starter. However, John Whittle with the Big Spur has also dished on a source confirmed to him as well. Jason Brown is going to get the start. Final quick question for you, JC. We'll get a couple picks from you, and then we'll get you out of here so we can get Michael in as well. I think that there's been a little window dressing this week, and a little could be a lot about the true health of Zeb Noland. I personally don't expect to see him tomorrow. I think this is going to be Jason Brown's game. And saying all of that, I ask you this. It's the final 4 games of the year, so the red shirt is in play here. Could we see Colton Gauthier potentially as well?
I think if there's a massive injury, like Jason can't go for the rest of the game, I would anticipate Gauthier getting the call. He's basically the second team quarterback. Because there's 4, not 3 games left though. And you have to, what you don't want to do, guys, is, okay, so Brown goes out, Gauthier comes in, Brown's out for the season. So Colton's now your starter. And that's fine. But then he runs out of eligibility and blows his red shirt if,
it's 4.
It is 4. That's right. It is 4. So, I think you'll see Colton if it's a situation where somebody has to close out the game. I think you could see DeCarrion Joyner back there if it's like a play where Brown's helmet comes off. And then we get to see DeCarrion keep the ball and lose 2 yards again. So that's always thrilling. Hey, maybe with the wet surface, though, he could, dart up in there. But
what's most important, JC? Gators, this line's come down a little bit. They're 18-point favorites, 53-0. Look, and I agree with you. We've all hit the hammer all year. The offense is bad, and we know it. But they're coming off of an off week, so you'd like to think, maybe something has changed. What to you say? Look, the outcome is not going to change. It's going to be another L. But this team may have a chance if blank happens.
Oh, I think it's quarterback. I mean, at some point, you have to just say you are who you are. We can't, you got to say, hey, look, we cannot protect that consistently. We cannot open holes in the run game that consistently, which is still pretty sad. But I think that, with Brown, he does give you some elusiveness. I think he is a guy, too, that is very, very competitive. He has a want-to about him. And it's not that Zeb and Luke Doty don't. But this is a guy that came to Carolina. He struggled in the spring, guys. He's got some people that think because he made those passes in the spring game that he's really pushing people. He's had to really work to get there. He had to work to reshape his body, to become elusive. He is a fantastic human being, too. I mean, Jason Brown is a fantastic person. Got a lot of competitiveness, and he's got something to prove. And sometimes you don't need to underestimate guys like that, especially at quarterback where, okay, so, play breaks down for Luke Doty. He seemed to be in a hurry to go upfield, get out of bounds, whatever. Play breaks down for Zeb Nolan. He's probably getting sacked, right? Jason Brown's going to do everything he can to stay on his feet, look downfield, eyes downfield, and make a play either with his arm or his legs. And those all scheduled plays, which South Carolina has not made a whole lot of them at all, that helps you. And Jason Brown's capable of that. The problem is this. Florida's not the best team to debut against because they're always fast. They've always got speed. And when you're coming up a level from, FCS and you're in a game as the starter, that speed is sometimes difficult to adjust to, even if you've practiced against it, even if you've played against it in mop-up duty or whatever. And so that's the downside, is that I wish they were playing a slower team for Jason Brown to make a start. But the Gators are always, very, very fast. You guys remember – you mentioned the 2017 game and the 3 picks Bentley threw in that one. That was not a good Florida team. They had an interim head coach. They were just really fast. And, that's just kind of who they are. So, maybe the wet field slows them down a bit. When you have a wet field and bad weather, it usually favors the offense because the offense allegedly knows where they're going. So, we'll see what happens. But, I think Carolina – defensively, I think it's good they got the rest, good they kind of healed up. I think it's just going to depend on discipline in the run game. Number one, can the line get a push against the run? Number two, can they remain disciplined at linebacker safety with their I mean, use a Will Muschamp term, folks. Run fits. That's a pretty common term, though, by the way. And if they can do that, I think they have a chance to stay in the game. This Florida offense is nothing like it was last year. I mean, it's not a throw it all over the place, go up and down the field kind of thing. There's no Kyle Pitts, that kind of thing. They do have really good players. You mentioned Pierce. I think he's an underutilized talent. I think he only got 9 carries against Georgia. They probably should have run him a little more. And then, of course, Emory Jones is more their runner. If they can find a way to keep the Gators from running the ball and force Emory Jones to throw it, I'm not saying the Gamecocks will win, but I think that increases their chances exponentially because South Carolina's defense, their pass defense, is very good, and they do get some interceptions, and the defensive line can pass rush. So if you're Clayton White, I think what you got to do is just maybe get some guys up around the line of scrimmage and just try to do everything you can to stop the run and force them to beat you. You may give up some long passes every now and then, but I think that is an opportunity for them to force the Gators into some mistakes, which I think Carolina's going to need. I want to say this too. I know everybody's down. I'm down about the offense. I don't know that I have a lot of faith. But this is not the 1985 Chicago Bears coming into Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday night. This is not the 2019 LSU Tigers. This is not the 2020 Florida Gators. They're a team that is an 18-point favorite for a reason, but they're also a team that if you play them right and the ball bounces your way, you can upset them. I mean, they're not – I've watched a lot of Florida this year, and they're not like they were last season. I think I said that on the show at one point. I thought that, Florida may take a little step back. And so I don't know that people need to be going into the game just kind of expecting the same old here because there's an opportunity, I think, to play a different ball game tomorrow night if you're South Carolina. Not guaranteeing it'll happen, but I'm saying there's a chance.
Tackle in space, Gamecocks, you mentioned the turnovers. Emory Jones has thrown 9 interceptions this year. Florida, 13th in the league, -7 in turnover margin. Here's another number for you. 120th in the FBS. Gators have only hit on 56% of their field goals. Keep them kicking, Gamecocks. You might have a chance in this one. David, JC said Brown was a fantastic person after saying he had struggled all spring, and that is why he has not played. Please, even though we love you, listen to his complete comments. JC, 3 picks. You got about 2 minutes to get them done, and then we're going to let you get out of here. Auburn and A&M, 13-14, 3:30 on CBS tomorrow. Kyle Field and the Auburn Tigers, FYI, control their own destiny in the SEC West.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? Brian Harsin, I was on a show in Tuscaloosa today. They were talking about him being SEC Coach of the Year. They're kind of in a zone right now, but Texas A&M has been playing very well too. Beat Alabama and then rolled over Missouri and Carolina. The Auburn Tigers have had very monumental wins at Kyle Field. I remember in 2013 when they kind of came out of nowhere and played for the national championship. I watched that game. They beat A&M and Johnny Manziel 45-41. And that's when you kind of thought, man, this Nick Marshall can play, and these guys are pretty good. And we all saw how it ended. So I think South Carolina I think Auburn can go in there and give them a game, but I'm gonna take the reverse trend of history here and say Texas A&M snaps that struggling streak against the Auburn Tigers at home at Kyle Field. And I think it's almost kind of set up perfectly because you had Auburn and they've had really tough. Ole Miss, big game. Everybody wants to beat Lane Kiffin, right? Arkansas, big game on the road. A&M's kind of had some breathers, and so I think they'll be ready to go have another big one. They'll have the all-male cheerleading corps hooping and hollering, the corps of cadets and all those guys. So I'm gonna go with A&M to win that ball game.
Very interesting. Very. By the way, A&M has never beaten Auburn at home. 4-0.
I know. Yeah. So they owned them out there, but
crazy.
But there's a first time for everything.
Clemson and Louisville, 7:30 on the ACC network. The Tigers are 4-point favorites at Cardinal Stadium.
No offense to Clemson fans. I forgot Clemson was even playing this weekend. I had to look up and see if they were playing. Because, they're normally on the top 25 games,
Yeah.
If Louisville can get some points and play decent defense and not give up a ton of rushing yards, I think Louisville can win the game. But I think last week the Tigers, because I think Louisville's kind of similar to FSU defensively, they found something with Will Shipley and sort of the run game and all that.
Yep.
Can't turn over the ball, but Clemson's pretty much owned Louisville since Louisville's been in the league. Big wins over them, some close ones, some blowouts. I'm going to go Clemson 21-17.
And finally, Florida, South Carolina, 7:30 SEC Network at Williams-Brice. JC, can the Gamecocks pull off an upset, a big one?
Said I wasn't going to pick them to do anything special until something happens to change my mind, so I'm sticking with it. I will say this. I picked 31-13 Florida, and this was before I found out about the weather. The weather's a very interesting dynamic here. And I kind of saw it going like this. The Gamecocks are going to play tough like they always do. I think 17-13 third quarter. Gators pull away with a couple of late touchdowns and win 31-13. But hopefully they can, I guess hang in there. Maybe make the plays at the end. And I'll say this too. People gripe about the close wins over Troy and ECU and Vandy. That helps a team when they get into a situation where they got to go down the field and win, even no matter the opponent. Because so many times college players kind of crap their pants when they're in that situation. So we may be in a situation, if it's that close toward the end, the Gamecocks have been in the situation before. If you're looking for a silver lining for those close wins, it's a silver lining. We talk a lot about learning how to win. Well, the Gamecocks have been in situations where they could have lost but didn't, and made the plays they needed to at the end. So that'll be really interesting to see. If it gets close late, how the Gamecocks sort of respond. Let's hope it's more like those 3 wins they took and not like the Kentucky game where they just kept shooting themselves in the foot.
Jason Brown will start Gamecocks Gators 7:30 tomorrow night. Plenty more on this matchup at thebigspur.com. JC, we'll let you run on that note, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, yeah, by the way, tell David,
I'm trying to ignore it. Nobody said that they were related. Just ignore it. It's okay.
It's insane. All right,
we'll move on. Thank you.
See you guys Wednesday, man.
There you go, JC. JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com. Time for our final timeout. When we return, Michael Flint will look at the matchups. We'll make our picks as well, and we'll get out of here before 2 o'clock. So I got to get on the road right after the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit MotleyRice.com for more. MotleyRice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right. We take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at StokesVW.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity finance to new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor, Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
You're tuned in to the Gamecock Preview Show, brought to you by Motley Rice. Our history makes us bold, our boldness makes history. And served by Whiskey Jam Whiskey, handcrafted just like a song. It's a South Carolina original, best shared with friends. So let's go Gamecocks.
Danny Hill, he'll run. Touchdown! Oh, watch him celebrate now.
I hope we can watch somebody celebrate tomorrow night. Hopefully the home team for Gamecock football. Williams-Brice Stadium. This guy has celebrated a bunch in there because he played for South Carolina. It's Michael Flint, former wide receiver. He's also our analyst. And for all you ladies out there, he is single, and he is very much so in shape. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
You can head to jbandgoldwatershow.com in the comments section. Just submit your phone number and a photo of yourselves. We'll pass that along to Michael and put you at jbandgoldwatershowmatch.com. All right, Mike. Carolina's got Florida tomorrow night, and we all know what's at stake here. We all know the task. So, look at a couple of matchups. We'll get you to get some picks, and we'll get out of here in the next 14 minutes. Darren and I are going to be right on the nose today because I know Darren's got to go make a sandwich, and then I've got to get on the road. Darren's probably calling a good game tonight. High school football, My TV Charleston, for all of you who are going to be in town. Please watch it, 7:30. Darren is really good at what he does, and it should be a good ball game between Ashley Ridge and Cane Bay. Mike, Brenton Cox Jr., Zach Carter, the defensive ends for Florida, they're really good. Carter's got 6 sacks on the year. Cox, former 5-star, transferred to the Gators from Georgia. We've seen him. There's not a lot of difference between them and the guys that play DN for A&M. There's some, but my point is it's on film, right? A&M was like, well, we're just going to send the horses and let's just see what happens. I think we all saw what happened. Carolina 15 yards through 3 quarters. It was putrid. Why would Florida do anything differently under Todd Grantham this week with those 2 guys playing the way they are at defensive end?
I don't think there will be. I don't think there's a lot that will be done. I think the only thing that might kind of throw a little bit of a wrinkle in there is, determining who starts at quarterback. I think it is going to be Jason Brown. There's not a lot of film out there on him, in a Carolina uniform. So, it all really depends on how we utilize the skill set, of Brown. And, you got Luke Doty, who's, similar, got Luke Doty being more mobile, not as mobile being hurt, but just probably looking to see how, we schemed offensively with what we did with Doty. And, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot different. I'm interested to see what, do we try to recreate the pocket outside? Do we try to put, get Jason Brown a lot of play action, to try and offset some of that pressure, different misdirections, try to get bootlegs, quick game, kind of neutralize that rush a little bit, screens, draws, stuff like that. It's going to be tough because we've kind of done a lot of the same things throughout the course of the year and we haven't really changed much. And so, it's going to be tough. I think the most important thing for Jason Brown is to not not really take this game personally. And what I mean by that is to come out and try to be a hero and say, I'm going to come out and prove everybody wrong, including the coaches why I should have been starting. And then you start to make those mistakes that put the ball in jeopardy. Gives Florida short field off turnovers. And you start to make a lot of those mistakes, whether it's mental mistakes or mistakes in the game, turning the ball over or taking a sack or, trying to do something that you're really not capable of doing, try to prove folks wrong. So it's really just playing within himself. And that's kind of the most important thing for him with those guys is just kind of taking in stride play by play.
Real quick, the injury report, Jalen Dickerson, Dylan Wonham, they are both out for the ball game, but it does appear that all the running backs, according to Shane Beamer last night, are healthy and ready to go. We'll see what that means for Kevin Harris, who I believe had 22 carries for 100 yards, I think, in this game last year. So it was certainly a good one for him. Michael, sticking on the offensive side of the football with Jason Brown, now the starter for South Carolina tomorrow night. You mentioned, moving the pocket and things of that nature. To kind of dumb it down into to terms for fans, easy to use terms, it almost seems to me like, let's just put somebody back there who, if this thing is ugly, they can they can survive. You know what I mean? Like, look, you're going to kind of be running for your life here and there. So somebody out there who can just kind of survive it. Zeb Nolan almost didn't, it felt like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a tough call because you got two guys injured right now. It's been tough. The offensive line hasn't played great. And, I'm hoping we come out and try to do things to try and mask some of that. We really haven't done a lot of things to try and help those guys as far as from a play calling standpoint, a scheme standpoint. We still look lost and confused as to what is going on, to what they're blocking, what the responsibility is. And so, you look to a lot of things that you can do from a play calling standpoint to try and eliminate some of that, which is quick game, misdirections, screens, draws, whether it be flip screens to the receiver or just getting the ball to the receiver quickly, counters, stuff like that, just from a scheme standpoint to simplify a little bit and not really make them think so much. It's just been kind of weird to see this year. It just looks like those guys are thinking so much, and it's 4 of the 5 guys from last year. And it's a little bit mind blowing, and I know it's frustrating on everybody, but try to get the ball out of Brown's hands quickly, not be so predictable, utilize all assets of the game on offense, to try and throw Florida off, to try to offset those defensive ends. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to do that, and I hope we utilize those. With the draw game, with the screen game, getting those guys flying upfield and then slip something right behind them. So interested to see how we attack it from that perspective. So we'll see.
All right, Mike. So E.J. Jenkins, we haven't talked about him yet today. You've been a quarterback. You've been a wide receiver. You not many people out there can probably understand it from both angles like you can, but we've seen time and time again, we'll speak specifics here to South Carolina, but every program has had these type connections. Quarterbacks are generally, they end up getting comfortable with one guy. I mean, last year, everybody was comfortable with Shi Smith, and you could go on and on down the list. Debo and Brian, somebody always emerges as a guy, and it's not always just because they're really good, but it's also because the quarterback feels very comfortable throwing the football to him. Well, E.J. Jenkins hadn't played a lot this year. I think in the opinion of a lot of people, hadn't played enough. Should he play more tomorrow night, regardless of what it looks like, to get on the field? Him and Jason Brown are best friends. They've known each other their whole lives. They played college football, high school football, everything together. And now tomorrow night, they got a chance to do it in the SEC. That's part of our buy or sell, brought to you by Jeff McCarragher at Carolina One Real Estate. Jeff.McCarragher at CarolinaOne.com. Does E.J. Jenkins catch 4 or more passes tomorrow night, and how much do you expect him to play?
It's a good question, because we hear,
I know that,
got to get E.J. Jenkins involved, got to get him playing. I think just with the comfort level, I think with some of the guys that are out, that you will see him in there a little bit more. I think Jason Brown, that's kind of his relief valve. And we say, getting comfortable with one guy. But if you look back and you think about it, a few years ago, we had 3 guys starting within our receiving court that are all playing in the NFL, that were all high draft picks. And it's like, you got to feel like you got those guys. You should be slinging the ball all over the field and getting those guys the ball. And it's like, you're right, though. It kind of just felt like it was, that one guy. And I don't know if is it scheme or, was it play calling? What was it? But, to your point, I think it does provide that little bit of a safety blanket relief valve, knowing, with him out there, that you put the ball up where only he can get it, and you give yourself a chance to make a play. And, it's either going to be incomplete or he catches it. You can't throw it 15 feet over his head, but you can put it up there around the rim and know that your guys, there's a high probability that he's either going to come down with it or it's going to be an incomplete and an incompletion. But it's, it's up to, kind of Jason Brown not to really panic back there and only feel like that's the guy that he's got to go to. He's got to get him the ball. He doesn't really know what everybody else is doing, but he knows EJ's there. So you become a little bit, you become more focused on one person rather than the scheme, and playing within the offense and playing within what the defense is giving you and the play at that specific moment. And, you still got to have good eyes downfield, but where your guy's going to be. So not really panicking in the moment of being your first SEC start, playing against Florida at night. So there's a lot going on, but I think it does help having that person that you're comfortable with. But, he's also been here since the spring. So, it's going to be interesting to see, what kind of rapport he's got with those other guys as well.
Gamer and gunslinger, a couple of G words been used this week for Jason Brown. Let's hope that gunslinger doesn't mean turnover machine, and that gamer means the, gamer. Exactly what it means, that you're good.
That's it. I mean, there's guys that don't really practice well, but when the lights turn on, they just show up.
Well,
I've seen it, many times. So I'm hoping that's the case too.
Yeah, somebody cut the freaking lights on tomorrow night. How about that? Let's see what happens. All right, on the flip side of it, Mike, they don't take a lot of sacks. South Carolina has been sacked. Florida only been sacked 7 times this year. But that's part because they run it a lot. Emory Jones is really accurate, 68%. He has thrown 9 interceptions, though. And generally, Michael, those come when it's time to try to throw it down the field. He's not as accurate down the field. Why is he so accurate? Well, because they throw it around the line of scrimmage, and they let those little quick guys get it, run it, and score. What's important for the Gamecocks defense tomorrow night? 6.1 yards per carry for Florida. That's number 1 in the FBS. Defensively, what do the Gamecocks need to do to slow them down in what's going to be probably a wet, cold Williams-Brice Stadium?
Yeah, I think an important thing is be disruptive and confusing a little bit. This is a Florida team right now that they're looking at this as a must-win with where they're sitting right now and kind of the direction of the program. This is really a must-win game for them, and the pressure is going to be on them. Pressure's on Dan Mullen, pressure's on the quarterbacks. There's a lot of pressure on that Florida football team right now. And I think what the defense, what we could do is try to force them into pressing and, force them into feeling like they got to make a play here. They got to make a play there. We have to do this. We have to do that, and force them to kind of press the issue. And then we're just a little bit disruptive. We start throwing things off. We confuse them a little bit, start throwing in different wrinkles, and it really just has the quarterback's head spinning to force them into making some turnovers. Our defense has been really good at that this year, and being able to create turnovers. That Coach White has gotten the most out of this defense, I think, of any unit or anybody, in the SEC really. You look at where we were last year from a talent standpoint and what we lost, but what we were not able to do on defense versus what we have this year, not as talented, but we're doing a lot of really good things, and the guys are coached really well. And I think those guys have a full understanding of that defense and what the expectation is, what they're doing. So, I think being disruptive and forcing Florida into pressing more than they would like and forcing them into some tough situations to where they feel like they got to make a play right then. And that's where guys start making mistakes.
Yeah, Gators -7 in the turnover department this year. It is way on down the line there, and hopefully it stays that way tomorrow night. Young linebackers, there's a chance the young linebackers, real quick here, Mike, are going to be getting in the ball game tomorrow night and moving forward. Carolina, we know with a team like Florida with all this team speed, you got to tackle in space. What will it mean to have guys like Debo Williams out there and Mokaba?
Yeah, no, with Debo Williams, I mean, it's big. I know the work ethic is there, but, mentally, does he have it down mentally with playing within the scheme, not playing outside yourself, don't overcommit, playing with good fundamentals, good footwork, and not taking yourself out of a play, not being blocked out of a play, but taking yourself out of a play because of bad fundamentals or you're not real sure what to do. But, those guys are important. It's huge. Those, it's going to be real critical for those front four guys to really eat up blocks and not allow those linemen to get to the second level and being able to keep those guys running free. But, having that athleticism and that quickness out there is definitely a huge value add for us, especially with this, the overall speed that Florida has, because those guys will be playing, they'll be playing sideline to sideline. And so it's critical that, the defensive linemen kind of eat up those blocks to allow those guys to stay free, to be able to get laterally sideline to sideline to keep up with them. So it's, the front four are just as important as those ones behind them too. So
you want to make some picks?
Let's do it.
You got 3 to go, and we got 2 minutes to get there. Starting at 3:30 on CBS tomorrow from Kyle Field, A&M hosts Auburn, 13-14 matchup. Michael, Auburn has beaten A&M every time they've been to College Station. Will they do it again? They're 4-0.
I think this is such a tough game to pick. It's kind of that Auburn, you think they're on the up. You never know. I'm going to go with Auburn. It's a tough call, but I think I'm going to go Auburn. I thought about A&M being at home, but I think the experience of Bo Nix, and I think Auburn ends up winning. I'm
right there with Mike. There's just something about Auburn trending in the right direction right now that I'm going to buy.
Really, I don't disagree with y'all. I don't know who, this is I think going to be a really good game, but I do think A&M is going to make enough plays late to win it, and it'll take it late in the ball game. But I'm with JC. I've got A&M finally breaking that spell at home against War Eagle. Clemson and Louisville, 7:30 ACC Network. Tigers 4-point favorites at Cardinal Stadium. Mike, who wins?
Another tough one. Clemson's offense, they just haven't been able to get it going. But I think their defense is good enough to help them. I think I'm gonna go Clemson in a close one here.
I like what Clemson maybe found last week, not so much in Shipley because he's done it a couple of times already this year. But the fact that DJ Uyunglele is becoming more vocal, becoming the leader they need him to be, becoming a guy others can look at. I don't think this is as close as people think it's going to be. I think Clemson puts up in the range of 28, 30 points and wins this game.
I think Louisville beats him, to be honest with both of you. There's something strange is going on up there at Louisville. I haven't been able to figure them out. Darren, like we've already talked about, like a lot of teams in the ACC, and Clemson's in that same boat. Don't make no mistake about it, right? They finally maybe figured something out. I think some of that unwinds tomorrow night. I do not trust DJ Uyunglele just yet, especially at night on the road in the ACC. I think Louisville wins the game and beats Clemson. And finally, Florida and South Carolina tomorrow. Michael, 18 in favor of the Gators. It would be a massive upset. Can Carolina pull it off?
It will be a massive upset, but there's too many unknowns going into this game. What kind of players, Jason Brown, who's going to, what guy's going to show up, what you've seen in the spring game and a little bit of what you saw last game versus what you hear from the practice field. I think there's just too many unknowns. The offense has not performed. I don't see it going in favor of the Gamecocks. I hope I'm wrong, but, I got to go with Florida on this one.
Yeah, I'm going Florida. There's no reason to expect South Carolina to be able to move the football. If it's bad weather, maybe that holds the game a little slower, but it doesn't mean it's going to help them move the ball. It doesn't mean it's going to clean up issues on the offensive line. I'm saying 37-10.
You are what you are until you're not, Darren. That's my saying. People say you are what you are. Yeah, you are what you are until you're not anymore. And right now, for both of you, I agree. I don't see how South Carolina can win the game. Jason Brown he hadn't been playing for a reason. So if he goes in there tomorrow night and he looks like a Heisman Trophy candidate, as much as people will celebrate a huge upset over the Gators, there's going to be a lot of questions to be answered by Shane Beamer and that coaching staff in the following days. But there's just no reason right now to pick South Carolina to beat a team like the Gators until they prove they're going to be something other than what they've been all year long, which is really bad on offense. As a matter of fact, historically bad. So Gators win, and I think they end up winning by at least a couple of touchdowns. And Williams-Brice, I think the weather might help some things a little bit in favor of the Gamecocks. Florida will turn it over. Carolina will probably get a couple of those, but as they do every week, nothing with them. So South Carolina falls, I think, tomorrow night and falls under 500. Mike, on that note, I'll let you run. But good news, I'll see you in Columbia, pal.
Sounds good, fellas. Y'all have a good one.
See you, man.
Yeah, there you go. Michael Flint, the very handsome, single, six-pack abs, former wide receiver at South Carolina. Darren, thank you. Another great week of hard work for you. Darren again tonight, pulling double duty on a Friday. He's got football. My TV Charleston, if you're in the low country, check it out. Ashley Ridge, Cane Bay, Darren Goldwater, play-by-play on the call. And then you'll be watching football.
Fun in Columbia.
Everybody, Dog and Duck, it's going to be a rainy, nasty weekend tomorrow. If you got to cancel the outdoor plans, Dog and Duck's where you want to go watch football. Do it. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, Mount Pleasant, Daniel Island. For Darren, I'm Jamie. Thanks to all of you for joining in. Can't wait to be back. The Big Gamecock Preview Show and the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. We'll see you Monday at noon.